I started making this video sometime after the CEO of Splitgate 2 showed the world how hip and trendy he was with his Make FPS Great Again hat, his joggers, his name-dropping Halo, Call of Duty, and Titanfall, and his Imagine Dragons. Imagine that. I'm allowed to say that because I graduated in 2013 and our walkout song was I'm on Top of the World. Make no mistake, this is the aura of a man who peaked in high school. And I can judge this man because I was this man. Then I turned 20. I figured the same thing was going to happen to Splitgate 2 that happened to most other shooters trying to break the mold for the past 14 years. It was going to die. Ironically, COD killers don't last long. Not even 2 months later, the Steam player base for Splitgate 2 is down by 90%. The servers for Splitgate 1 are being shut down, people are being laid off, and Splitgate 2 is being unlaunched, going back to the beta drawing board. Not only did Splitgate 2 not make FPS great again, it didn't even make Splitgate 1 great again. It was another unimaginative and derivative video game lump under the carpet. Many have come before, many more will come after because I don't think you can make FPS great again. Because they're a product of their time and times have changed. To illustrate this point, I will present Call of Duty Black Ops 1 and 6 as a case study to show what 14 years of gaming's biggest trends have done to the genre. From about 2009 to 2013, first-person shooters were essentially my entire console gaming rotation. I had everything a growing gamer needed. I'm talking about Halo 3, ODST, and Halo Reach, Battlefield Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, and Battlefield 4. And of course, it was Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 1, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, and Modern Warfare 3. It was around Black Ops 2 that things started to feel funny to me, and I walked away from the franchise in 2013 after playing a single match of Call of Duty Ghosts. I didn't spend much time in Battlefield 1, likewise I only put in a dozen or so hours in Halo 4. Maybe I burned myself out. Maybe I needed a break. I took the break. I tried some of the later Call of Duties, I played Battlefield 2042, I played Halo Infinite. Even when they supposedly went back to their roots, I still couldn't shake this strange sensation of deja vu gloom. That feeling that you've done this before, but you remember it used to make you a lot happier. Maybe I was beyond burned out, maybe I outgrew first-person shooters. People change, they do. And while true, first-person shooters also changed. And the most blatant difference between Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 6 was their respective gaming ecosystems. Black Ops 1 at the time didn't have to deal with the unbearable weight of massive talent and the expectations that come with it. There was more competition in the genre. Hell, there was even more competition amongst games called Call of Duty. Yes, back then there were two emerging flavors of Call of Duty. World War shooters were a popular affair, but another studio, Infinity Ward, modernized the gameplay with COD 4. Treyarch and Infinity Ward worked on alternating 2-year rotations. And from what I can recall at the time, Infinity Ward was seen as the superstar and the pioneer who was advancing the game engine that both studios were using. If we pull out these old charts, you can see that while each new Call of Duty installment was selling more copies than the last, Infinity Ward's games were when the sales spiked for the franchise. They broke the mold with Modern Warfare 1 in 2007, and Treyarch continued the World War theme with World at War in 2008. Infinity Ward then released Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, and Treyarch released Black Ops 1 in 2010, and what a release it was. It felt like a game that was made by a studio that didn't have to worry about building its own infrastructure from the ground up and were in their comfort zone making war games based in world history, because that is exactly what was happening. It's worth noting that being in the shadow of Infinity Ward might have helped keep Black Ops and Treyarch out of the spotlight of office politics. With the unprecedented success of Modern Warfare, Activision and Infinity Ward's executives fought over money and creative control for years, which eventually led to the firings of Jason West and Vince Zampella and the resignation of 40 Infinity Ward employees. The older brother was gone, and Treyarch was essentially left alone to deal with Dad's drinking problems. Yes, other studios had pitched in to help over the years, such as Raven Software and Sledgehammer, but the bigger of the two Call of Duty frontrunners was in a crisis. Who's to say if the Infinity Ward split led to more pressure being put on Treyarch? Or if corporate meddling was as inevitable for them as it was for every other major franchise owned by Activision Blizzard. Jason Schreier's book, Play Nice: The Rise, Fall, and Future of Blizzard Entertainment lays out more of Bobby Kotick's management style at the time. In short, he replaced a lot of the creative executives who enjoyed making games with executives who didn't understand gaming but excelled at product strategy. If they felt a franchise had potential to become $1 billion cash cow, it would inevitably be milked into oblivion. And one of those golden udders was esports. Interest in formal competitive gaming was slowly growing and not yet fully integrated during the Black Ops 1 days in 2010. There were MLG events and other tournaments, but I describe that as a sort of underground scene. 14 years later in the Black Ops 6 days, it is an inseparable part of the game's identity for better or worse.
Optic are there, and they're spawning there too. Every single player here in Shotzi to seal the deal. Final fight. Shotzi's there. Nasty dives. It's history in the making. Back to back. World champions. Optic Texas.
This isn't just a Call of Duty thing, as competitive gaming and esports were being peddled everywhere as the golden ticket in the 2010s. That's where studios were supposed to make the real money. In theory, competitive players have a higher rate of engagement than casual players. More passionate people engaging with your game boosts the relevance, extends its shelf life, and increases potential revenue. Esports organizations of all sizes were literally all over the world in any game it made sense to put them into. And sometimes in some games that it didn't make sense to put them into. But how do games attract a competitive audience? Traditionally, games would separate the casual players from the hardcore because those are two different audiences with conflicting desires that should never be in the same room together. A fun example of this is Smash Bros. By default, it is designed as a party game full of whimsy and imbalance. If you wanted to have a serious match, you could make a separate lobby and customize the rule set to suit your sweaty needs. It was a take it out in the parking lot kind of mentality. And the other way of going about this was by doing the exact opposite. Make your game competitive by default, and have silly, whimsical side modes for people who didn't have the brass or the brain damage to play seriously. That would be something like League of Legends, Dota 2, or Counter-Strike. These games having somewhere for the competitive players to gather creates, essentially, free marketing. There was a devoted pocket of professional gaming videos, and while streaming was in its infancy, it was mostly dominated by highly skilled players in their respective competitive games. And the most viewed streams were big tournament events. Some investors, studios, and developers got into their heads that the only thing better than free marketing was marketing that they could control and sell for ad space the way you can with real-life sports. But if you want to sell something, you have to take on the cost as well. In order to make up for the cost, you need to bring in more people. One idea was to integrate competitive design into casual design. It was like spiking somebody's drink, expose casual players to competitive play, and hope they'd get a taste for it. Call of Duty went from being over the top to being more focused on balance and team play. Not to get too into the weeds, but one of the more prominent playstyles was to go for a lot of kills without dying. But the problem was lesser skilled players would get demolished by kill streaks, those being Predator missiles, airstrikes, dogs, and nukes. This would make people leave, and we can't have that because if people leave, they take their money with them. I loved Modern Warfare 3's attempt to balance this because anyone who had the skill and ambition to go for the coveted 24-25 killstreak nukes would choose the Specialist Strike package, which made your character stronger, but you weren't able to rain down hellfire from the skies. It was pure gunplay, which I imagine was far less annoying to be on the receiving end of. Or you could still choose the traditional perks and rain down hellfire, but they no longer chained off of each other. And there were support streaks which you could get without needing to do it all in one life, which made even our worst friends feel like they were contributing. It was fun for the whole family, and everyone was having their fun their way. This was swapped out in Black Ops 2. Kill streaks were now score streaks. Kills still gave points, but you got more from objective and team play. It made the game much easier, but let me be clear that my problem is not that it made getting high streaks easier, nor do I dislike objective play or competitive play. It's that this incentivized one single style of play over all the others, and it wasn't even the most popular play style at the time. It was made this way so people could get a feel for what it was like to play a little competitive and hopefully funnel them into ranked play. And hopefully that would push them into the esports scene. This is where Call of Duty slowly started to homogenize itself. Casual play was undermined by competitive design, and competitive play was undermined by casual design. Let me show you the opposite ends talking about how the other ruined the game. On the casual side, you have one of the original Modern Warfare multiplayer designers saying that designing for competitive play has taken the fun out of the new games. On the competitive side, you have Nadeshot, a veteran of the scene, complaining about casual design leading to a watered-down competitive side.
For a long time, I think this game has always been like, oh, I'm coming home from work and I'm going to play with the boys for a couple hours and I'm going to kick back a few brewskis. And from my perspective, I think Call of Duty has taken pride in that type of audience, that type of casual player base. And so they've never really felt the need to invest in servers that perform better and faster and more efficiently, because I think they believe that the players that are truly making up the network of players that they have, using their game and playing their game every day, they won't notice the difference, and they don't actually care. And so if they don't actually care and this is a casual game, then why are we going to spend more money on server performance when we're not going to see any benefit to it? And I don't mean us as players. I mean, ourselves as if, we're talking from Activision's perspective. That is one of the biggest reasons why we continue to be served just a handful of shit every single year when we play this game.
So neither side is happy and they blame each other. And the worst of it is that casual and competitive play are both undermined by monetization design. In a truly competitive setting, you'd want to match up players of equal skill with each other. Now, we know there's multiple patents that change how players are matched up to adjust for player experiences. Is that match fixing? Some of them I would call genuine compromises for the quality of matchmaking. It is a fickle beast. A quick example there is two people being of equal skill, but they're on opposite sides of the world. That wouldn't be fun or competitive for either player, so you wouldn't match them together. But a few, I would say, are much closer to rigging. Especially this one, dubbed the System and Method for Driving Microtransactions in Multiplayer Video Games patent, where it tries to convince players that don't buy skins to buy skins by placing them with players who do buy skins. The literal text says, for instance, the system may match a more expert marquee player with a junior player to encourage the junior player to make game-related purchases of items possessed or used by the marquee player. A junior player may wish to emulate the marquee player by obtaining weapons or other items by the marquee player. Ironically, Esportstification led to less fun and less competitive integrity. And while that ran its course, another industry trend was slowly growing: Contentification. In the old days, you bought Call of Duty and then the game experience was whatever was inside the game. It was not common for the experience to change over time. You were judged on the attractiveness of a finished product, and once players got their fill, they would go on about their business. This formula was tweaked a lot over the years, but it remained fairly standard for quite a while. Then over time, a few games did this thing where they'd set up an in-game store and sold microtransactions, usually cosmetics. It was so effective that some games didn't even have to charge people the entry fee of buying the game first. But how do you keep people coming back to the in-game store? Well, that was what esports was supposed to accomplish. If you think about real sports, the core gameplay doesn't really change from time to time. The players change and the fans come for the people. What some studios did, including Call of Duty, is they changed the game itself and added more content. New seasons, new battle passes, new rotation of skins, new modes, new gameplay elements. This was beyond balance updates. This was change for the sake of change. Change was now the new marketing device. I don't think it's the worst thing. I think many games can manage to be a rotating wheel of content while keeping up quality and identity like Warframe and Path of Exile. I think even Fortnite has managed to create a cohesive identity from being a cultural drainage ditch, and I say that with affection. It's also lore accurate. Side note, once you're done here, I do recommend this little video, Why Fortnite Collabs Work Where Call of Duties Fail. It's something to think about. Back to the topic at hand, is there a problem with change for the sake of change? Well, we don't know for certain yet. It took over a decade to have enough case studies to conclude that esports, for the most part, was wildly oversold and overhyped. Many people, myself included, suspected this was the case, but we didn't know for sure. I suspected the same with Contentification years ago, but that's only being validated now as we are seeing more of the long-term effects. The main ones being a lower standard of quality and a higher rate of player fatigue. Changing a game while it's being played is a difficult process and causes a lot of hiccups. Over time, these hiccups build up and you have to choose which problems you're going to fix. Most of your resources are going to go to pushing out new content, making sure the microtransactions are in working condition, and fixing anything that literally breaks the game. Every other problem is kicked on down the road. So what you end up with is poor optimization, game imbalance, hackers and cheaters, toxic communities, and features that flat out don't work as intended. Internally, this leads to chaotic workplace conditions, which leads to developer burnout, but at least the in-game store is pristine.
The house of lies, I would call it. It's like houses being built. I was trying to think of an analogy before I started the stream that would make sense the way that I see Call of Duty. Newer homes, they look great, it seems great, but they use shortcuts, cheap materials. You move into this fucking thing and it's broken. The construction is just shitty, shoddy, cheap materials. The people that are building it, they don't give a fuck. They're just trying to get it done. You got nails exposed in the drywall. All the plumbing is fucked. There's nothing in this home that actually works properly. It looks good, but once you get in there and you live there for 6 months, the damn thing is falling apart. That's what Call of Duty feels like to me. From a network perspective, from an anti-cheat perspective. The game itself, Treyarch did their job. The game is fun. The mechanics are fun. But once you start playing the game, if you actually spend time, like meaningful time playing this game, it does not work properly.
Again, to illustrate that this is an industry thing and not just a Call of Duty thing, I will present another example, this time being Helldivers 2. Well, I think the game has always had a strong core identity. Hearing that they plan to add a major update once a month made me break out in hives. It didn't sound manageable, and it wasn't. They eventually did end up slowing down on the updates to help themselves and to help the game. We're also seeing now that it's not just developer burnout you have to worry about. Your player base can also grow tired of a constantly changing game. Psychologically, Contentification takes advantage of the feeling of missing out, FOMO. People want to feel included and show up for big events, so the more big events your game has, the more a player will feel an impulse to check in on a game. That's the logic, at least. It works for some, it has the opposite effect for others. Once you miss an update because of work, school, vacation, or because you were playing something else, then the feeling of missing out is mitigated. You realize that you missed out and you survived. You're fine. All sense of urgency is gone. For newer players, too many changes can be intimidating. It's like wanting to get started on watching One Piece, then finding out there's well over 1,000 episodes and they're still making more, so it's like you're trying to run across moving traffic. You feel you're behind before you've even begun, so why start? For veteran players, it can feel as if you can't get comfortable because the game keeps changing and the strong core identity that once attracted you to the game is no longer there. And you wonder to yourself, am I playing because of what the game is or because of what it was? Or maybe because of what it could be? That's the dark side of Contentification. Change for the sake of your loose change. And of course, none of any of this could have been possible without the spread of the internet. 18 years ago in a bum rural town, I couldn't get much of a stable internet connection. I'd have to buffer old Robin Williams stand-up videos for hours and hope nobody needed to use the house phone. Online multiplayer gaming wasn't even a consideration for me. Now the house I grew up in has fiber internet, and I've got family in even more remote locations playing Roblox and Fortnite through satellite. On top of that, video and streaming sites amplified gaming's reach and exposure. I think overall it's been a net positive with a lot of unintended consequences. One of those being a skewed feedback system. I imagine Black Ops 1 got a fraction of the player feedback that Black Ops 6 got. Now you've got miserable people telling you why your game sucks and it should be like other games. And people who like your game telling you how your game could be better if it was like other games. Esports players are some of the best players in their respective games, but they're maybe 1% of any game's total population. Since they're part of the marketing branch, you'd want to make them happy, but what business is going to pander to only 1% of their entire audience? Content creators consume games at an abnormal pace compared to everyone else, so now there's an incentive to make frequent, flashy events to keep them coming back and making the game grindier to hold them down in between seasons. And of course, everybody licensing out their IP for collaboration events are going to have something to say. And it's not just an online multiplayer thing either. These trends over the past 14 years have also impacted the single player. I was astonished to find that HowLongToBeat.com puts Black Ops 6's campaign length at 8 hours. It felt longer, and I was beelining through it on the easiest difficulty. It felt like a hodgepodge of gaming elements. There were horror game bits, stealth sections, boss fights, escape room type puzzles. I actually quite like that one. There's immersive sims, sandbox, open world layouts where you're given an objective and multiple ways to choose in what order you wish to accomplish those goals. Now I can see why someone would like this. On paper it sounds like there is variety and player choice. Personally, I think variety and player choice means nothing if the various things you choose to do aren't exciting. I, as a person, would much rather play 8 different games that excel at doing one thing than have one game that sorta kinda does 8 different things. Now go back 14 years ago to Black Ops 1. It does one thing. You shoot dudes, except this mission when you give ordnance directions from on high, then you shoot dudes. Yes, the gameplay was not varied, and there wasn't much player choice outside of which guy you're shooting first. It is valid to call it one note, but that one note was an explosive, resonant ooh-rah. Black Ops 1 felt like it had an identity. One singular vision, and it over-delivered during a time when that sort of release was rewarded. Whereas Black Ops 6 feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be, or what it really wants to be is too big. So everything got scaled back, so we're left playing in the ruins of what could have been. That's what happened to this particular brand of FPS. That's what happened to X-Defiant, it's what happened to Splitgate 2, and it's why you can't make FPS great again. The phrase focuses on the features of old games and forgets to take into account the circumstances at the time that made them stand out. The FPSs of 2010 weren't trying to make FPS great again, they were just trying to make great FPSs, full stop. And this can be expanded upon to other major genres and franchises. Too preoccupied with what came before and what will come after, getting in the way of making a great game now. Normally I'd end the video there, but I'd like to take a moment to shout out Winslow Dumaine and his card game The Restless. I'm not sponsored in any way, I'm very much a fan of his humor and his outlook on life, and he's manifested that into this co-op dungeon crawler. He described it as inspired by video games like Dark Souls, Neo Scavenger, and Stalker, and board games like Four Souls. I'm describing it as, it reminds me of my first time playing through Darkest Dungeon. I can practically hear the narration of the late great Wayne June. Here's my 2 favorite cards at the moment. Black Word Expunction. You choose a word on a card and it considers it erased. I love the flavored text, a word so atrocious it does not even echo. It makes for some funky effects, like on my second favorite card I can take away the word not and turn the sentence into does stack. This one is Dreryl's Indulgent Debauch, the finest food stuffed with the second finest food. It looks like a crab stuffed with Lord knows what. My headcanon is that this is death metal surf and turf. And I hope it's not considered cheating, but I couldn't help but read through the flavored text of all the cards. It's very easy to pick up, and I'm getting to that point where I've learned enough about the game that I can try to break it in a sort of Slay the Spire kind of way. It can be solo played. I've done a few of those. I love playing it, and if you think it's something you might be interested in as well, the Kickstarter is available until the 6th of August. You don't even have to feel guilty about getting them over their funding goal. They've nearly tripled it. As I said, I'm not sponsored. I am currently working through my guilt of sharing things I enjoy that I think you might enjoy.